I'm seeing the number of attendees still being let in, so I'm going to give it a second until that number seems to stabilize, and then we'll begin. Okay, looks like that number has the Zoom has let all the members into the Zoom meeting. So I'll go ahead and kick us off. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. This is Christine Morris. I am the facilitator of the CFWI Management Oversight Committee and Steering Committee and host of today's web-based meeting. This is our first ever virtual steering committee meeting, but staff at the water management districts and department have successfully hosted several meetings online during these unique times. And I wanted to give my appreciation to South Florida for assisting in bringing us together apart today. We have over 50 or 60 people joining us today. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. Therefore, I will encourage everyone to keep their Zoom on mute or their phone on mute and when they are not speaking. To begin, I'd like to take roll call to make sure we still have all our steering committee members on the line. I'll go start with Adam Blaylock, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the chair.
I'm here.
All right, great. Todd Swingle, Toho Water Authority.
Here.
Christopher Pettit, Florida Department of Agricultural and Consumer Services.
Good morning.
Morning. Susan Dolan, St. Johns River Water Management District.
I am present.
Excellent. Jim Murphy, Southwest Florida Water Management District.
Present.
And Ben Butler, South Florida Water Management District.
Good morning. I'm here.
All right. Thank you for joining all of us. Today's agenda includes a number of updates and 2 action items. When there is an action item, there will be time for public comment. After public comment, the chair will invite the committee to move and second a motion. Once the motion is seconded, a yes or no vote will be necessary from each member by roll call so that the vote can be properly recorded in the meeting minutes. A little instruction on public comment. I'm going to share with you all a slide that kind of shows this. If you're participating via Zoom, you're going to use the raise hand feature. If you're participating via phone, *9 will raise your hand and *6 will mute and unmute your phone to speak. All right. So unless I have any other issues, we'll go ahead and get started on our agenda. Having completed the welcomes and coordination, we'll go ahead and go straight to agenda item number 2, approval of the amendments to team membership. The CFWI is made up of a series of working groups for teams who enable engagement between the districts and stakeholders. Team membership is approved by the steering committee and is in need of updating. With your agenda, you received a team membership list, which is displayed here. This represents the most up-to-date list available. The Management Oversight Committee recommends approval of these amendments to team membership. Because this is an action item, I will ask if we have any specific public comment on this agenda item. Again, if so, please use the *9 to raise your hand. I see we do have someone who's raised their hand. They raised it when they first entered. I don't know if that's to have a public comment on agenda item number 2, team membership. Bob Dollery. Bob, if you're trying to speak, you're on mute.
I just lowered my hand. I raised it
Okay.
inadvertently. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. It's always interesting getting used to this electronic format. All right. Chair, it does not appear we have any public comment on this, so I will turn it over to you to facilitate committee action.
Thank you, Christine. Well, first off, do any of the steering committee have any comments they'd like to make? And Christine, I don't know if do they have to raise their hand or they'd be able to speak?
Nope, they were able to just unmute themselves if they had public comments or sorry, steering
Hi,
committee comment.
Perfect.
Hi, Christine. It's Susie Dolan. I do not have any comments, but I don't have, it looks like my computer is having an interruption in the connection. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. I can still see, but I'm not sure how long that's going to last. So I'm going to pull it up on another computer as well so I can see on both.
Okay.
Okay.
I did email you the materials as well,
Yep.
just in case you do get lose the visual.
Yeah, I've got the material also.
Okay,
Dr. Shortell's office sent it to me.
great.
Thank you.
This is Todd Swingle. I move for approval.
Second, Chris Pettit.
Very good. All right, we'll go ahead and do a voice vote just so we make sure everybody is accounted for. No, you might be muted, Todd.
Todd Swingle, aye.
Chris Pettit,
Yes.
Susan Dolan,
Yes.
Jim Murphy,
Approve.
Ben Butler,
Yes.
and I approve as well. We have unanimous for approval. Christine?
All right, thank you. Up next on our agenda, we have a regulatory update presented by Christina Koger. Christina, you can go off mute.
Good morning. As Christine said, I'm Christina Koger. I'm with the Water Policy and Ecosystem Restoration Group at DEP. And today I'd like to provide you all with a brief overview of the rulemaking process, our current status, and next steps. The formal rulemaking process began with legislation enacted in 2016, requiring DEP to do uniform rulemaking for the CFWI. Prior to this legislation, the CFWI regulatory team had been coordinating on regulatory issues and continued to help in the early stages of draft rule development, including outlining the scope of content for the future rules. The department then held rule development workshops for different portions of the rules beginning in 2017 through 2019, the most recent being April of last year. Since then, we've been working on incorporating comments into the draft rules and making additional changes based on and to be consistent with the draft 2020 Regional Water Supply Plan update. Currently, we're working on finalizing the rule language, and we plan to have additional workshop and meetings with stakeholders that mainly focuses in on changes since the last version of the rule presented. We haven't set a date yet for this workshop, but we're looking at the June through August timeframe. And then following the workshop, next steps would be to incorporate any additional feedback we receive into the draft rule. And then once that's finalized, we can proceed, go forward with a notice of proposed rule, which has additional opportunities for public comment before the rule would become effective. And the general time frame for this is August through September of this year. And that's all I have for my update today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, this is Chris, if you don't mind me asking a question or quasi comment, I suppose. I guess I'll take the assignment as a yes. Christina, I know that you noted that it's been, I guess, a year since we've had any public workshop on the rule. I guess my thought was, and I think I've asked this question of a couple of people. You know, you have basically an entirely new steering committee at this point from that time frame, and we've had a shift in any number of different kind of mechanisms under the context of the initiative, and I don't necessarily want to slow things down per se, but given that we are all kind of interested, either agencies or stakeholders groups that, you know, will be kind of looking at what the changes are and kind of have been involved in the process. I was hoping to either have a discussion or at least get a thought about, given that you've got a public workshop that you're going to be doing, bringing it back, you know, specifically and officially to the steering committee to be able to kind of look at, you know, the changes in the rule language and, you know, kind of have just a review conversation about where we've been and kind of where we're headed with the language. I mean, I understand that we want to, you've got a tight time frame, and we want to make sure that we're bringing this in for a landing. And I'm sure that we're going to have, you know, opportunity for public comment as you do the additional workshop. But at least from my vantage point, having worn a couple of hats in this process, you know, I wouldn't mind having just an ability to at least review, because frankly, I haven't seen the latest updated language, the latest regulatory update as it relates to the rulemaking.
Yeah, this is Adam. Chris, thank you. No, I appreciate those comments. And currently the department, you know, they are under the direction to adopt the rules laid out in the statute. But I think, you know, being able to provide that information when it's available to the steering committee is something we can look at possibly doing at the next steering committee. Let me give just some thought during the public workshops that we're planning to do as part of the kind of rulemaking process. We definitely want to be able to have as much stakeholder engagement as possible. So I appreciate those comments, and we'll see how that fits with kind of the rulemaking process and getting an explanation and kind of going through some of the issues that are going to be brought up within the rule, so that the steering committee members can at least be able to ask questions and have an understanding of kind of where we're going. And currently we are kind of in the earlier stages of putting that specific language together. So at the next, when the next steering committee is getting close, then we can look about doing and providing that presentation to the steering committee.
That'd be wonderful. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, just another question. Christine, I just don't have it off the tip of my tongue. When is the next steering committee scheduled?
There is no steering committee currently scheduled beyond this one. They typically tend to be between either every quarter or every other quarter, depending on whether or not there's sufficient agenda items.
Okay. So, I mean, realistically, we could get this in. I mean, if you're shooting for kind of August, September timeframe for kind of finalization and whatnot as you go through, I mean, technically we could go through the workshops and, you know, say late July or early August prior to kind of rolling it up and getting into that final stance. There's at least a feasibility that we could come together to kind of get that update if it's agreed upon.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the members on the steering committee, we want to be able to make sure that they are informed on the rule. And during that workshop, the water management districts, of course, DACs, the agricultural stakeholders, the utilities, and all of the people that are represented on the steering committee will have ample opportunity to be able to provide comments. So as we're going through and we determine when the next steering committee is and when that will fit in, we'll do our best to try to make those match up. But in case that it doesn't, you know, the water management obviously are going to be working closely, and since a lot of implementation will be done through their permitting process, and then with DACs as well, and just individual agricultural stakeholders who also have a important interest in how consumptive use permitting is going to be done and how that implementation with the regional water supply plan, and last but not least, of course, the public utilities as well. So we will do our best on fitting that into the steering committee schedule, but also just we're planning to hold multiple workshops during the rulemaking process that would have language available ahead of time so it can be reviewed and commented on by all the representatives and members and stakeholders that the steering committee represents.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Right. If we're ready to move on to agenda item 4. The one thing you'll note as a theme in today's meeting is projects. So we wanted to bring to you project highlights over the past year. So I'm going to introduce Joe Quinn with the Southwest Florida Water Management District, Stacy Adams with the South Florida Water Management District, and Lori Berkeley with the St. Johns River Water Management District. Joe, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Christine.
Hold on one moment. Let me give you control. There you go.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joseph Quinn with the district's Water Resources Bureau. I'm pleased to be here this morning to provide an overview of a couple of projects that we've been working on within the CFWI planning area. The district's been committed to the development of AWS, or alternative water supply projects, within the CFWI planning area. And to that effect, our governing board has committed to $65 million in the development of AWS projects with the Polk Regional Water Cooperative. To date, we've actually funded about $50 million of that, and with the remainder of that to occur over the next 3 years. These funds have been used in part to develop 2 lower Floridan aquifer brackish groundwater projects. That would be our Southeast Wellfield and our West Polk Wellfield projects with the Polk Regional Water Cooperative, or PRWC. First of these projects is south and east of Lake Wales, the Southeast Wellfield, and our West Polk project is located within the city of Lakeland. This first project, the Southeast Wellfield, the scope of the project is for the development ultimately of a 30 million gallon per day lower Floridan brackish wellfield. That would include approximately 15 wells in linear fashion along a 10-mile stretch south of State Road 60 in Polk County. It would also include the development of a brackish groundwater water treatment facility and a transmission system that would include distribution to PRWC's member governments. The total cost of this project is approximately $446 million at build out. The status of it is it's currently in preliminary design is underway. And we anticipate that the development of the first 2 phases of that, which would develop 12.5 million gallons per day in capacity, will occur by 2027. The second of these projects is our West Polk Wellfield project. The project scope for this is the ultimate development of a 15 million gallon per day lower Floridan aquifer brackish wellfield, which would include up to 19 production wells, the construction of a water treatment facility, and a transmission system, again, to distribute those resources to the member governments of the PRWC. Total cost of this at build out is approximately $204 million. This project is currently in the conceptual design phase, which is underway. The development of the first phase of this would occur by 2027, and that would include 5 million gallons per day in capacity. With that, I'll answer any questions.
All right. And I'm going to turn over control to Stacy Adams.
Good morning. My name is Stacey Adams, and I'm a Senior Project Manager at the South Florida Water Management District. We'd like to highlight two projects today. The first project is the Orange County Utilities Lower Floridan Booster Pump Station. This project is part of a larger AWS project sponsored by the Water Cooperative of Central Florida, which is made up of the City of St. Cloud, Toho Water Authority, Orange County Utilities, Polk County Utilities, and Reedy Creek Improvement District. In lieu of each co-op member constructing an alternative water supply, Lower Floridan Aquifer Water Treatment Facility, the co-op is investing in the Toho Water Authority's Lower Floridan Aquifer Cypress Lakes Wellfield project. This pump station and similar projects are being constructed to increase the interconnectivity of utilities to distribute the AWS water source. This particular project constructed the pump house building to 4,000 gallons per minute pumps with room for expansion and over 1,200 linear feet of 36-inch diameter water main. The district provided $500,000, and the final actual construction cost was approximately $3.2 million. Once the Cypress Lake Wellfield project comes online, we anticipate just shy of 6 million gallons per day in capacity. The second project we would like to highlight is the St. Cloud Toilet Rebate Program. It's part of their ongoing conservation efforts, and we've had a successful partnership with them in the past. They provided 301 rebates for an average rebate of $134 for folks in their service area to purchase WaterSense labeled high-efficiency toilets and all associated hardware. The district did provide 50% cost share of $22,500. Project is complete, and the estimated water savings were 3.42 million gallons per year. That concludes my portion.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm going to give control to Lori Berklew.
Good morning. This is Lori Berklew, and I'm a hydrologist with the St. Johns River Water Management District in our Bureau of Water Supply Planning. And I will be highlighting a few projects that are located in our district. Okay, the first project I'd like to highlight is an agricultural water conservation project. Cherry Lake Tree Farm is an 1,100-acre containerized nursery located in southern Lake County. They have approximately 700 acres of woody ornamental shrubs and trees in containers under irrigation. This tree farm regularly strives to become even more efficient. They were already using microspray and drip irrigation in individual containers when they retrofitted their system back in 2018 with more efficient microspray stake assemblies. These stake assemblies allow them to turn off individual emitters within a zone of emitters as trees are harvested. And this action alone saved 0.29 million gallons per day. Their most recent cost share project completed in 2019 was twofold. The first initiative was to revamp, upgrade, and improve pressure regulation throughout the farm. This is an important upgrade to their system given the hilly location of the farm, requiring water to be pumped at higher pressures than is needed for delivery at the emitters. This improvement allows for pressure regulation at various positions within the closed loop irrigation system, thus regulating the pressure reaching the individual emitters to an optimal range. This minimizes misting and saves as much as 10% of water use. The second aspect of this project was to install soil moisture sensors and weather stations with telemetry across their operation, allowing them to further fine-tune their irrigation program. The farm has been participating in a 3-year trial with the University of Florida that indicates a 40% water savings potential from this equipment. The farm will measure the effectiveness of these improvements through follow-up evaluation as they track reductions in water use. The total cost of this project is approximately $125,000, with our district cost sharing for $94,000. This project is expected to save an additional 0.275 million gallons per day. Oops. The district and Altamonte Springs have a long-standing relationship and project development in the region. The second project I would like to highlight was 10 years in the making and is a partnership between the City of Altamonte Springs and the Florida Department of Transportation, along with DEP and our district. The project is called the Altamonte Springs FDOT Integrated Reuse and Stormwater Treatment Project, but is known as AFIRST for short. AFIRST is an example of the beneficial use of stormwater on a regional scale. Before the AFIRST project was constructed, stormwater would run off of I-4 and flow into drainage ponds along the side of the road. Now, that stormwater is captured, treated, and redirected into the city's reclaimed water system, where it is used for irrigation. Whenever there is excess stormwater, it is routed to the city of Apopka. With a total project cost of $11.5 million, AFIRST has the capacity to deliver a maximum flow of 4.5 million gallons per day in alternative water supply and set the groundwork for future expansion of AWS use with regional partners in the area. Altamonte Springs regional efforts were furthered last year when they partnered with DEP and the district on an expansion project at their water reclamation facility that was funded through the fiscal year 1920 AWS legislative funding program. The city has a regional water reclamation facility that serves the cities of Altamonte, Maitland, Winter Park, Eatonville, Longwood, and areas of unincorporated Seminole County, as well as the city of Apopka, through the force mains that were completed as part of the AFIRST project. The phase 2 expansion at the water reclamation facility will increase advanced wastewater treatment from 9 to 2.5 million gallons per day, allowing for the production of up to 3.5 million gallons more reclaimed water to be used by partners in the area, further reducing potable irrigation demands. The expansions at this facility involve the conversion of 3 rectangular clarifiers and the construction of 2 90-foot diameter circular clarifiers, achieving more efficient performance and greater overall treatment. Total project costs are $3 million, with DEP funding providing $1.5 million, and our district providing an additional $226,000. And this project is currently in progress. Thank you. And that's all I had, Christine.
All right, I'll take control.
Okay.
And did we have any questions from the steering committee or comments from the steering committee on the project highlights we brought to you today?
Christina, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yay. This is Susie Dolan, and I did want to just make a couple comments about the Altamonte projects. Altamonte has been quite the partner with DEP and with the Water Management District. I just want to recognize them and Ed Torres and Frank Martz, of course, their city manager, for all of the innovative projects that they've done, their partnerships with us, and the fact that they are a great partner when it comes to water quality and reuse and their innovations in those areas. So I just did want to make a comment about it, and I did want to thank them for all of their hard work and their continued work.
Thank you. Did we have any other further comment on the project highlights?
Yeah, this is Adam. I just kind of echo what Ms. Dolan had said. I mean, really good projects, a lot of coordination between the district's DEP, the nursery in particular. And so just, back of the envelope, looked like, close to 65 MGD water in these projects when they're fully operational and completed. So I think it's a really good step in the right direction, and appreciate the presentations.
All right, thank you. All right. Up next is agenda item number 4, the 2020 Water Conservation Project applications presented by Stacy. I'm going to turn over control to you, Stacy.
Okay. Good morning again. My name is Stacy Adams. I'm a senior project manager at the South Florida Water Management District. Today I'm going to be providing a brief overview of the CFWI Water Conservation Cost Share Program. And at the end, we'll be requesting approval of the final list. Oops, sorry about that. In 2019, the governor and legislature provided $40 million in funding for water supply and water resource development projects, including water conservation. DEP then reached out to the water management districts to solicit projects from public and private water users. There's a slight lag in the So the CFWI Water Conservation Project process, how this occurred was that South Florida had funding that we returned, and the DEP leadership at the time decided to redirect the funds to establish a CFWI Water Conservation Cost Share Program due to the regional high priority needs. So in January, the districts and DEP began collaborating on guidelines, the application, and an internal review process with an internal review team. The internal review team consisted of 2 staff members from each district. I was the program manager, and Morgan Westbury from DEP was the advisor liaison. The application was released in mid-February, closed at the end of March, and in April and May, the internal review team and the management review was conducted and finalized. And as I indicated earlier today, we're coming before the steering committee to ask approval of the final list. If applicable, the district governing boards will take their projects in June with anticipation to execute agreements with the end users in July. The districts came up with some general project requirements. Number 1, it had to be within the CFWI planning area. This is a cost reimbursement program, so the applicants had to be able to fully fund the project because no one was guaranteed 50%. Due to internal discussions, we decided to set the limit of minimum project cost of $15,000 for government agencies, utilities, and municipalities, just because of the time involved. It did not apply to other water users. All costs had to be related to project implementation, and eligible expenditures occurred between July 1st, 2020 and November 30th of 2022. For a consistent review, the internal review team agreed upon several considerations, including cost effectiveness or return on investment, quantity of water saved, the readiness to proceed, project planning, water source, and other benefits. Just an overview of where the projects were located. Geographically, there's 4 in Southwest, 4 in St. John's, 2 in South Florida. This is an overview of the applications received. We're asking for approval of 5 out of the 10 applications for a total of $287,500. There are 2 projects in Southwest, 2 projects in St. John's, and 1 project in South Florida. Next, you have the complete list of the applications that were received and reviewed by the internal review team. The top 5 projects are being recommended for funding. And staff is requesting approval of the proposed list for submission to DEP, but prior to the steering committee vote, are there any questions that I can answer?
All right, Stacy, I've taken back control. This is an action item, so I'm going to ask whether or not we have any public comments on this specific agenda item. If you would like to public comment, please use the raise hand using the Zoom, or if you're on the phone, you can use the *9. All right, I'm not seeing any hands being raised. So Chair, with no public comment, I'll turn it over to you to facilitate steering committee action.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the members of the steering committee?
This is Todd Swingle, and I believe that I need to abstain since Toho is recommended for funding, and that is my organization.
Very good.
This is Ben Butler. If we need a motion, I'll move to approve the 5 projects for funding.
This is Susie Dolan. I'll second.
Very good. All right, seeing that we have a motion and a second, we'll do roll call vote. Chris?
Chris, you may need to go off mute.
I'll come back to Chris. Susan?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
I approve as well. Chris, one more time. And Todd recused. We still have majority. I believe that's enough for a acceptance of those. Is that correct, Christine?
I believe so.
Very good. Then we'll see the projects accepted.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda, we kind of to round out the presentations on projects, let's look at the AWS funding for the past year and plans for the future. We have Ed Smith with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection presenting. Ed, I'm going to turn over control to you.
Thank you, Christine. And thank you, steering committee members, for allowing me to present to you today. My name is Edward Smith. I'm the director for the Office of Water Policy and Ecosystems Restoration with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Today, I have put together a quick presentation that gives you an update of the FY19, fiscal year 1920 funding for AWS projects specific to the CFWI area. And then we'll talk a little bit about next year's or the upcoming funding and kind of what our anticipated process is for that. All right, so for the FY19-20 year, there was a $40 million appropriation for alternative water supply. The money came from the legislature to the department, and from the department, it went to the water management districts. All in all, about 20% of the funding for alternative water supply went to the CFWI. And this is kind of how the breakout was done by water management districts. Excuse me, South Florida received about 2.8 million, which includes the CFWI-wide conservation funds. The Southwest Florida Water Management District, 2.4 million, and St. John's, 1.5 million. Sorry. The way these funds were broken out, there were 5 projects in total selected. There was the Toho Cypress Lake well field, which was a $2.5 million project, or $2.5 million of funding for that project within the South Florida's region. Southwest Florida had 2 projects selected: the Polk Regional Water Cooperative, Southeast Wellfield at 1.4 million. The PRWC West Polk County Lower Aquifer Deep Wells at 1 million. And then St. John's had one project selected, which is the Altamonte Springs Regional Water Reclamation Facility at 1.5 million. To date, we have dispersed about 96% of these funds to the water management districts. The only remaining funds that we have are specific to the CFWI wide conservation projects. So as soon as we get those, we will be working with the district to get those funds, to get those projects moving. For the upcoming year, again, the legislature provided $40 million in funding. Of that, we will request projects from the water management districts. In the meantime, we've been working with the water management districts on an update to our alternative water supply funding guidance. We are nearing completion. We've made some changes to the eligibility requirements, the submittal process, and some of the evaluation criteria. Once we have finalized the guidance document, we will post it to the department's website and made available to the public and everyone that wants to have a look at it. The guidance is, like I said, going through a final review. We're about 2 weeks out, hopefully sooner than 2 weeks, but about 2 weeks out from making it available. One thing we're doing new this year at DEP, kind of recognizing that we had a lot of funds come in for 1920 that created a little bit of confusion for a lot of the parties that were trying to submit for access to those grant funds. We're trying to come up with a portal or a central location for submittal of project ideas. Instead of having each different division have put out their own solicitations, we worked as a team to come up with a simple solicitation application. It's essentially a 2-page application, and you would submit any project to the department. It would be evaluated, and then those projects, once they have been evaluated, we would work with the people who submitted with a more in-depth and more detailed submission process. The good thing about this is it's one, it's an easier way to submit a project for consideration, but it also would allow funding from multiple programs. So if a project crossed barriers between a TMDL or a total maximum daily load project or a water supply project, we could maximize funding use to push those projects further down the line. It's kind of an idea that we had within DEP. As far as AWS goes, we originally had anticipated using the portal for AWS, but upon consultation with the water management district, we've decided that we're not going to use the portal to solicit ideas. However, we are working now to make sure that if someone does come to the portal with an AWS idea, that they would be able to direct those ideas to the appropriate water management district at that time. And again, we're looking at mid to late summer this year for the portal to go live. I think we're less than 60 days out at this point. So just to clean up a few more details and then a run through internal, and we'll be ready to go. And with that, I will open the floor to any questions.
Thank you, Ed. Do we have any questions from the steering committee? All right. And with that, then we'll have our final agenda item, which is an update on the 2020 Regional Water Supply Plan presented by Tammy Bader. Tammy, you're up.
Thank you, Christine. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the steering committee. Tammy Bader Gibbs with the St. Johns River Water Management District, representing the Central Florida Water Initiative as the Regional Water Supply Plan team lead. Today we have just a brief update on our progress to date and where we're at with the plan. On March 13th, we opened our public comment period for the plan review. That comment period ended on May 15th. We held 2 public workshops that were held via Zoom, like we're doing today. And thank you for South Florida for hosting those. Our first one was held on April 23rd. We had 287 people that registered. 204 attended that webinar. On April 30th, we had 139 participants that registered and 65 attended. So we had a really great turnout. All of the PowerPoints, the webinar recordings, summaries, and participant lists are available online if anyone wishes to look at those. So far, we have received comments from 90 different constituents and stakeholders and over 200 comments total. Our team is working diligently to go through all of those comments and incorporate any changes as necessary to the plan and creating our comments and responses document. The general comments that we received were in regards to our project options, making sure that conservation is a priority, and the next steps that we're going to take in our planning processes. Our schedule is that we will come back to the Management Oversight Committee in September with our edits and any comments and changes and anything we need guidance on. With that, our plan is to take our final approval to all of our respective governing boards in November. One other thing I'd like to mention, which is a very significant effort, it's also available online on the CFWI website, is the final East Central Florida Transient Extended Model Documentation and Peer Review Report. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions if we have them.
Do we have any questions for Tammy from the steering committee?
I don't have any questions, but I just would say thank you to Tammy for all the work that you and everybody else involved with developing the regional water supply plan. I know it's a lot of work and time and effort has gone into doing that. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. With no other questions or comments for Tammy from the steering committee, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is public comments. So thank you, presenters. As before, I'm going to share with you all a screen that tells you how you may raise your hand, as well as how you will unmute your phone if you are connecting to the audio via the phone. So with that, do we have any attendees who would like to provide general public comment? All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So thank you. Members of the steering committee, do you have any final questions or comments? All right. With no further comments, Chair, I'll turn it over to you to hit our agenda item number 9 to adjourn.
Thank you, Christine, and I appreciate getting this meeting organized and facilitating and working with South Florida. I know this being my second steering committee, it's much different than the first one. I hope everyone on the steering committee and elsewhere are doing well, and look forward to hopefully being able to have in-person meetings in the near future. So with that, ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Susie Dolan.
And
Butler, second.
Very good. Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.